Now, there's another conversation we could have about the Vancouver Canucks where I tend to believe that they're not as bad as their record indicates. And I don't think that they're as bad as we've seen them over the first, 20 to 25 games of the season. Because I've said this on a previous show, Lepore, coming into the season, I legitimately thought the Canucks were a top 3 team in the North Division. And you can look at the depth they lost in the offseason and their goaltending. But when you look at the high-end talent, and you mentioned it with Brock Besser, who I thought was phenomenal in the Saturday night game.
What a player.
And you look at their top-end talent and think about they beat the Leafs twice without Elias Pettersson in the lineup. So the Leafs go from...
Yeah, we didn't even mention that. Yeah, good
insane.
call.
So the Leafs go from completely shutting down McDavid and Draisaitl to coming into a seemingly cupcake matchup against the Canucks without Elias Pettersson, their number one center, and they lose both games. Yeah. But this is a team, Lepore. You look at that top 6, Horvat, JT Miller, Brock Besser. They got talent, man.
Yeah.
And when you add in Thatcher Demko playing the way he's playing, now, is he going to play like that the rest of the season? No. But this is a team that was getting horrific goaltending through the first 20 games of the season. And now I think you're seeing it normalize a little bit with that team. And I think they are definitely better than we all kind of saw over the first stretch of the season. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, like you said, when you have that kind of talent, you on any night you can beat anyone. And you can say that about any team, but people know what I mean by the statement I just made, in the way that you can beat the good teams and you're not shocked when they beat the good teams. Because man, like Besser is awesome. Like we're gonna go old school here. Like he's a hockey player. So I will say that I do agree with you with regard to how good that team is, or how that team does not necessarily match their record so far. But I'll ask you this. So right now, the Canadians have played 23 games. They're 11-6-6 with 28 points. The Canucks have 24 points from 28 games. They are 11-15-2. So they've played 5 more games than Montreal, but they have 4 less points. So they're actually halfway done. Vancouver's halfway done at 28 games. Can you see a situation where Vancouver can catch, I guess it'd have to be either Edmonton or Montreal, and leapfrog Calgary and make the playoffs?
The math right now is completely against them.
Yeah, it's
because
bad.
Like you said, they're halfway done. They got to play at like almost like a 70% clip.
Yeah,
the rest of the season to probably make the playoffs. So I think at this point their season's done. Like I would actually be really surprised if they made the playoffs. Now, do I think they're going to have a much better record the second half of the season? Yes, I do. I expect them to compete with all these teams in the North Division. I don't think they're going to get rolled over like we've seen, a lot from the Senators this season. I think they're a legit team. And, we didn't even mention Quinn Hughes as well, who he makes some plays out there on the back end for the Canucks. You're just shaking your head. That kid is ridiculous. So they got some talent. And yes, I think they're going to be better over the second half of the season. But when you just look at the math, it just doesn't add up. They got to play at an insane pace the rest of the season. I don't see them sneaking into a playoff spot, but I certainly do, Lepore, see them, really competing with the rest of these teams in this division and making it difficult.
Yeah, it's funny though, because again, how this season's different. So here we are, like I'm in agreement with you saying it'll be fucking tough for them to make it. And I just circled kind of Montreal because they're in the 4th spot. But then you look at it, so they play Montreal, ironically enough, on Monday and Wednesday. Then they're at home in both those games. Then they're home versus Edmonton. So Montreal, Edmonton. Then they have 2 games against the Senators. Then they have Montreal 2 more times. And then towards the end of the season, they have a stretch where they play Ottawa 4 straight times. So it's one of those things where, like, they're obviously not going to win every single one, but they got those 2 games against Montreal head-to-head, games against Ottawa. Things
it's there for them if they want to take it.
Exactly. Like you don't get these opportunities in a quote unquote regular season where you're playing your opponents directly. So people always look at the point differences and say, well, there's 3-point games. The teams above you are going to win games. So it's almost impossible to catch up. No, in this format, in this setup, you can catch up in a hurry and you can drop in a hurry. So we'll see. I mean, I'd love to see it. Like I'd love to see the Canucks go on a run and make it interesting and have like a shit show of teams battling that last week for those last few spots. It'd be awesome. So, I mean, they have the talent to do it. It's just a matter of whether or not they'll be able to, and they got to do it now. Like they got to get going now, because they can't be in a situation where they're too far behind and they have to pull a miracle out of their ass the last month of the season.
Exactly. And that's the thing. They have no room for error. So enough of, trying to get Holtby reintegrated into this. Like, you just have to run with Demko now as your number one. And I know they've been doing that recently.
Yeah.
But, it's gotten to that point in the season. This is a sprint to the finish. And again, I'll reiterate this for the 500th time. It is not early, everybody. It is not early whatsoever. We're
halfway done. Yeah,
We're at the halfway point. What you're seeing right now is, more or less what you're going to see 28 games from now.
What you think of it this way, where we are right now is where we would be percentage wise had teams played 40, 50 games.
Yeah.
So it is what it is now. Like, hearing that, like, the trade deadline's coming up. Like, we're almost there.
It's true. And even though, you could say, oh, the sample size, isn't big, but no, in a season like this is a pretty damn big sample size. We're halfway done. Yeah. You got to get your ass going in a hurry if you're a team like the Vancouver Canucks, or, even the Calgary Flames for that matter. If you really want to, make a strong push to get one of these 4 playoff spots in the Canadian division.